Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I'm your host, Justin Schwarzenberger, and today we are going to be talking about the AngularUP Conference and having a little discussion about that. It's coming up just around the corner, so we're going to talk about that. But before we begin today, I want to give a shout out and plug Angular Camp 2017. Angular Camp is a community event that's going to take place on July 6th and 7th in Barcelona. It's a developer camp that you can make new friends and master new tech skills. It's really open for anyone to contribute. You don't have to be a speaker to be involved in this thing. It's just about the community getting together and talking and learning Angular and engaging. So it's pretty cool. Check that out. It's at angularcamp.org and get more information about that. Again, that's coming up July 6th and 7th in Barcelona. All right, today we're going to be talking AngularUP. We've got Uri Shaked with us today. Uri, how's it going?
Yeah, all is great. Nice to be here on AngularAir. Speaking of Angular Camp, I actually attended it last year, and it was a great experience. We even did some live coding with Wrapup and Web Bluetooth. Like I was giving a short session about Web Bluetooth, and then one of the attendees said, "Hey, I have this Bluetooth robot here. Maybe we can hack something together." And I told him, "You know what? Just stay here after the session, and we are going to do some live coding." And we actually had a small open source project come out of that, so it really works.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, all I hear is good stuff about that event, and now that I got a passport because I'm going to do a cruise, I'm gonna have to plan some trips over across the sea, across the state and the sea to get over there. Sounds like a fun event, definitely. All right, well, we're gonna have I believe Mike Rocky's gonna be joining us here in a bit too, so we'll see if he jumps on. We'll say hi to him. But let's start talking about AngularUP. So that's little details about that, right? That's coming up on June 25th in Tel Aviv, and it's Israel's International Angular Conference and Tour. So let's talk about it. Yeah, second year of the conference, right?
Actually, yes, but before having AngularUP, we actually had more community, like organic-driven conference, which was called ngConf Israel, and it was like much smaller, and it was like our first time trying to create some kind of conference around Angular, but then at some point we realized, like, we spoke with the ngConf organizers and they said, "Hey, it's okay, you can use that name," but we realized we like wanted our own identity and we wanted to grow up from one-day conference where everyone can attend and no fee required to something better where we have some budget to bring international speakers and like really awesome venue and not some free venue that we got for the first ngConf Israel. So it's the second time we are doing AngularUP, but it's the first time we're doing an Angular conference in Israel.
Okay, cool. So what, how big was that, the original one, and then how big is it now in terms of attendees? Do you happen to know approximately?
So for the first ngConf, I think we booked a place. We had a place like for 300 people, and we had 300, like it filled up real quick. And then at the conference way, we actually had a show up rate of about 500 people, and we couldn't accommodate everyone, and it was like going crazy. We used Eventbrite to check people in, and for some reason, at the time we started to check people in, their service went down for an hour. So it was total mess. At some point, we just said, "You know what? Everybody get in." It was like it wasn't a paid conference, so we just let everybody in without even checking in. So that was crazy. We had only like almost 500. then for the second year, we got some sponsor to give us a bigger venue. So it was like a venue for 500, and it filled up real quick. And we tried to make it clear this time that if you don't have a ticket, then you can't just show up. It worked quite well. We had like 550 people. And then last year, when we started with the AngularUP brand, it was a challenge because the conference was free up to then, and suddenly we had like to figure out how to sell tickets. And we know that some people wouldn't pay 150 euros for a ticket. Either they couldn't afford it, or they would just prefer to get the content from YouTube. But it turned out pretty well. I think last year we had around 500 tickets as well, but this time paid. And this year we set a goal even higher. We got a bigger venue, and I think we are going to be at over 800 developers.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Very awesome. And where did the up part come from for the new name? Do you happen to know?
That's a good question. We had a lot of discussion over that, and we had some more innovative ideas. Some of them were like, we were really polarized about them, such as Angular Nation, because we have this cliche about Israel being the startup nation. So some of the guys really wanted to take on that cliche and call it Angular Nation, and then other guy says, you know what, it's a cliche. We don't want you to sound like too cliche. And then we had more creative ideas like ng hummus, the hummus dip. But it sounds fun, but maybe not professional enough. And then at some point, somebody just said Angular up, Angular left, Angular. I don't know. I don't even know. Somebody just dropped the name and it sticked, and it's Angular up now.
Well, that's pretty cool. I think it's a really good name. It's cool. So somebody just threw out some directions, right? Up, left, right, and up was the one that stuck.
Well, I think I'm not even sure. Like there was so many emails going on with names and ideas. I can like find the thread later. It's interesting to see how we came up with it. And then we had like another iteration of picking up the logo and deciding even the capitalization, whether the apps should be uppercase or lowercase. I actually don't even remember. I always Google it like to see how we capitalize it correctly.
That's funny because I do the same thing. I believe it's uppercase U and P, so that's what I've been doing because that's what I discovered. So I'm like, I think that's the branding that they want, right? Capital A.
Yeah, that sounds fine. All right for me, like U P uppercase.
Cool. So it looks like it's earlier this year than it was last year. I think it was in November last year, and now we're talking what, July, June? Sorry, June.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know why it was moved up?
Well, when you need to schedule a conference, there are so many factors that you need to take into account, like which other conferences are happening around the same time, and booking the venues. And some dates are like booked up because they are popular for weddings, for example. So many venues just let people do their wedding in the venue, and then some dates are really hard to book. So it's like coordinating with the venue, with holidays, with other conferences around. I didn't do the logistics for this year or last year, but once you go above a certain size, like 800 people is pretty big, and you want to find a venue that accommodates everybody, and it's in Tel Aviv and not somewhere peripheral, then your options start to get really limited, and you have like, okay, you can pick this date, or that date, and that's it.
All right. Yeah, and I think that that's something that's probably becoming more of a challenge now too, with the overlap of conferences, right? Or we're starting to get more and more Angular focused conferences, which is great for all of us, great for attendees, great for the content. But now there's a scheduling challenge, right? Not only for the organizers and creators of those conferences, but also now for the attendees and the speakers to now try and decide which ones am I going to hit and which ones, line up, especially when we're talking about all across the world, right? And these different potential ones. So pretty interesting challenge that's starting to arise here.
Definitely a good challenge, and there is also a positive sides for having like two conferences happen the same week, because we can share speakers. So last year we had I think Tracy Lee, Ben Lesh, me, Sebastian, and I probably forgot somebody who went to AngularUP, and then the next week went to NG Poland. So it's like some of them, like Ben and Tracy, traveled all the way from the US, and then they went to Israel, and then they went to Poland, and they went home. So it was actually in favor of the conferences that they were so close in dates, but still we don't want to have them on the same day, because otherwise nobody will be happy.
Right. Do you happen to know that they give the same talks at both places?
I didn't, which was quite challenging for me because I was traveling back from the US. I got home Wednesday night, the day before AngularUP, and I spent all the time on the plane preparing my AngularUP talk. And then I had like the Israel tour the next day, like just landed, next day AngularUP, then Israel tour, then one day to relax, then another conference in Israel. On the same day, I went to Poland, then I did a full day workshop, and then I did the talk in NG Poland, and each one was a different subject. I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, as a speaker, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I over prepare too much, but like I couldn't even imagine trying to prep multiple talks in that short amount of time. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes I just like try to either repeat my talks. That's a good solution. Once you have something working, you can improve on, but at least you got the base, and you don't need to make a lot of new assumptions that might not work, like the timing of everything and whether the audience will be interested and which parts are more relevant or less. And another trick I try to do sometimes is to limit the time in advance. I prepare in advance, because I found out that if I have too much time, I start concentrating on stuff that is not that important, like adjusting the stuff on my slides and putting GIFs. So I prefer like having half an hour before the conference starts just for those fine adjustments, and not like doing them too much ahead of time.
That's a super interesting approach. So you're putting the time constraint and pressure on yourself to help control the content that you're creating, and then how much deep you go into those sort of scenarios. That's pretty cool. I don't know if I could do that. That'd be a lot of stress for me, but that's really cool.
Yeah, well, so Share Resnick?
Oh yeah.
I think one of the best tips I got from him is like when you go on stage, when he goes on stage, he's always super stressed. Like maybe it's hard to see that on him, but it's like even before he prepares the talk, it's like, yeah, it's gonna fail, it's not gonna work, nobody has ever done it, and why would I be the one to do it successfully? And then at some point he said to myself, you know what, calm down, it's gonna be great, you are going to have fun, and that's what matters. And whenever I have somebody speak at my meetup or in a conference, I don't ask them, hey, how did it go? Or, hey, did it go well? I ask them, hey, did you have fun? Because I think if you're having fun giving a talk, then at least you did something good for yourself. And many times it's really like it's broadcasted to the audience, and the audience is also having fun together with you. And it sets the atmosphere much better than if you're like stressed and it's not gonna work. And another good tip I got from him is like, if you're worried about something, like you have a really complicated live demo that maybe there is a good chance it will fail, just try to be honest and share it with the audience. Like, hey, we are having this like really crazy demo here, and apparently I didn't have enough time to practice it. So it might fail, but bear with me. Even if it fails, we'll try to learn something from that.
Yeah, those are great points, and I totally agree with them, and I love that approach. Very cool. Definitely cool.
So all credit goes to Shai.
Cool. So let's talk about the experience for attendees at AngularUP. What's that like? And kind of compare it to maybe some other conferences. You know, for example, like ngConf is a conference where there's a lot of interaction and open between speakers and just attendees, and there's just like this moment of collaboration for multiple days amongst all the attendees. And is that something similar that's here in AngularUP? And what's that experience like for attendees?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer it from the perspective of some things that we decided to improve following last year, because we believe that's one of our goals. Like the conference makes a lot of efforts to get the best speakers we can from the States, from Europe, from Israel, and we think it's a shame if we just get somebody fly all the way from the States to Israel to give 30 minutes talk and then go back. Because if you just wanted to watch his talk, you could go to YouTube, like you could do it over Hangouts. There is a little value in you being there in the audience, because once it's a big conference, you can't really raise your hand and ask a question in the middle. So one of our goals is to get people from the local community engaged with those speakers who come from abroad. And there are several things we decided to change this year. And one of them, and that's actually my personal opinion, I haven't spoke about it with the other organizers, but we have, spoiler alert, we have the NG Tour we are probably going to discuss in a few moments. And this year we are going to make the NG Tour before the conference. And the reason we are doing that, I guess it also has a logistics reason, but from my view, one of the benefits for that is that it will allow all the speakers to get to know each other before the conference. And when you have a friendly atmosphere between the speakers and they had like a shared experience together, I think it sets the pace for makes them much more approachable to other people. Like they feel like they belong there, they feel like they are part of the conference. And
yeah, you know, that also is really beneficial for the speakers to be able to feel that comfort level, and that, you know, like you're talking about the excitement and joy over presenting, right? Because now you're getting that attachment to your audience early on, and that can help alleviate that and help you focus more on, oh, these are the people that I'm doing it for. These are, and you know, we're interacting, and yeah, definitely. I really like that concept.
We are trying to get like some of the attendees on the tour as well, so they will also have an opportunity to engage with those people for like 2 days. And well, I'll keep some of the surprises for when we speak about the NG tour. But so that's one point. And then another point we try to introduce this year is kind of office hours, community hours. We saw this at Angular Connect in ngConf, and I personally believe it works great. Like when you have a time slot, you can go to Joe Ince and speak it with him about whatever, or just like say, hey, I watched your course on the Pluralsight. I really love what you're doing. Just wanted to say hi. And sometimes when you watch people on YouTube, it feels totally different than when you just meet them in person, see them smile, see them laugh. You get a totally different vibe. And that's one thing we are trying to do this year to get office hours. Last year, we tried to do something different that didn't quite work, which was having an expert panel at the end of the conference. But then it was around 5:30, 6 p.m.-ish, and some people just need to go home if they are moms and they have children and they need to pick them up, or like they're just too tired because they spend the entire day listening and learning new material. And we had at that time, we had more than 50% of the people left. And the speakers themselves were tired and didn't really want to sit and have a panel. So we decided spontaneously not to have the panel and just told, you know what, just get in this room and everybody who wants can come and ask you questions before they go home. And it worked, but it was too late. It was 5:30 p.m. So this year we are going to have office hours throughout the conference.
I really like that idea, that the office hours. That's one of my favorite things about ngConf, is that opportunity in that middle day to interact with people and help people out on a personal basis and go around and answer questions and stuff like that. So that's definitely, and yeah, it is, you get, by the end of the conference, you have that you're just exhausted. You've done so many interactions with people as an attendee. You've seen so much content, you consume so much stuff, and as a speaker, you're doing all these things, and just by that end, yeah, I can totally imagine it's probably just the wind down time, right?
Yeah, that's one point. And then another point is it gives you structure, because if you just see somebody you recognize from the internet, or somebody who just gave a perfect talk, and is walking in the hallway, maybe he's speaking with somebody, maybe it's just looking for food. Sometimes you just don't feel comfortable to approach. And fortunately for Israelis, that's less a problem. Most Israelis are more comfortable with approaching people they don't know, but still there are some developers who are more introvert. And I think if we put people in the same room and start ignite the discussion, it's much easier to get to jump on the opportunity and ask your own question, or express some opinion, maybe tell him, you know what, Joe, what you talked about, I don't agree with you. It's much easier when you have this structure, when you have this room and you're not in the hallway or somewhere distracted by 10 other things and that are going, and people walking around you.
Yeah, it's that invitation, right? I mean, it's essentially what it is. When people are walking the halls, you don't know as an attendee if is this a good time to talk. But with these office hours, it's like an open invitation saying, hey, it's okay to approach these people. It's okay to start talking to them and have this discussion, right? So, and people feel much more confident about that. Totally. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, sorry I'm a little bit late. Had a little stuff going on around here, so happy to join in. Mid-conversation. Oh, it's my kid's artwork.
Lovely.
Cool. So, Mike, we were just talking about this is like at AngularUP for attendees and how it compares to maybe some other conferences, and what the goal is to try and make that experience for attendees at AngularUP.
That's awesome. I've talked to a few people who've had the luxury of being able to go, or the opportunity to be able to go in the past few years, and I've heard really good things about AngularUP. So congratulations on putting on a great conference in years past, and I'm sure that's going to continue this year.
Totally. So what about sponsorships and stuff? Are there sponsors on site in the hall? Like, is that something that people have available to them to go up and talk to? You know, at other conferences, you have the sponsors of the conference will have booths, and you can kind of see what they're up to in terms of what they're doing for Angular and things like that. Is that something that goes on at AngularUP as well?
So I don't really know about this year. I can tell that last year we had one sponsor which did something really cool, in my opinion. They had like around 3 p.m. we had afternoon break, and 3:30 I think it was, and they just said, hey, everybody wants, you can come to our booth, we have beer, and you get to keep the beer glass to yourself. So that was really cool. People like now have beer glasses of Angular.
That's cool. That's cool. Always
Yeah.
good swag.
Yeah, like I think it was one of the more unique swags that I got out of conferences. So I'm not sure actually about this year. We'll have to find out with Noor if she joins us, but I assume it will be similar to last year. Like we'll have some sponsors in the hallways, and people will be able to speak to them, get swag, like the usual stuff.
Cool. What about are there workshops too, or is it just sessions and then the tour?
So yeah, I think last year we kind of it was trying to check the water to see like how open are people here, like how easy or hard would it be to get people to actually pay for a conference, and see if we can actually put it together. This year we have workshops. Last year I don't think we had. This year we are going to have workshops. Right now we have 2 workshops already confirmed, which one of them will be with Joe Eames. He called it Testing Angular Like a Boss. I already like the name. And then we also have Christopher Noring from the UK, who is going to speak about ArcGIS, but this time like more advanced use cases for ArcGIS. So I guess he's not going to just do the standard autocomplete examples that everybody does when they speak about reactive programming, but get into more advanced stuff. And I think it's not yet confirmed, so it might change, but I think we're also going to have interesting workshop about GraphQL. And the nice thing about it is these are not like workshops that happen before or after the conference. These are all going to be mini workshops that will happen throughout the conference. So you don't have to buy a separate ticket, and you don't have to tell your boss, hey, you know what, I really want to get better at testing or learn about GraphQL. You can just, during the conference, say, hey, I'm really interested in GraphQL. I'm just going to this workshop.
That's awesome. So are those workshops then at the same time as other sessions, or is it just essentially like a workshop block and you can go to the workshop of your choice?
No, you have to choose.
Excellent. Should have some sort of like incentives to go to one workshop versus the other, aside from the material.
Are those workshops like all day, or are they part of the day, couple hours? Do you happen to know?
So right now they are just a part of the day, but we still haven't we just have 2 of them confirmed. We are not sure about how many we are going to have. There is a chance that they will be all day, so to be decided.
That's cool. So what about the talks? What kind of talks are there this year?
So regarding the talks, we try to make it like the selection of topics really diverse. So have a talk about every different angle of Angular. So we have like stuff about change detection, native script, service workers and progressive web apps, Ionic. We have Minko, who is going to do cool stuff with the Angular compiler. Have you seen his ngConf talk?
Yeah, yeah.
The praise and all that. I think that was hilarious. I was like, at the beginning of the talk, I was, okay, so that's another technical talk, interesting. But then when he showed the demos with the trees, I was like, wow, that's really, really creative.
Yeah,
And
looks like you got a good lineup of people talking about topics this year.
yes, we have like so we have Sunny Yousef from Ionic. Last year he gave a really awesome talk, and I think the best thing about Sunny is how funny he was during the speaker tour. Last year it was only one day, and he did like really funny rap, totally improvised on the bus. It was hilarious. So one more reason to go to the speaker tour is just because Sunny is there.
Yeah, we had him on the show a while back, and he's great. Yeah, lots of energy too. I got a chance to hang out with him and meet him in person this year at ngConf, and it was awesome. So yeah, definitely good speaker.
Yeah, he has great energy. It's like sometimes it's hard to keep up with him, but he's always filling you with positiveness and like so much energy. And
Always smiling too. I think maybe that's why I attached to him, because I kind of smile too.
yeah, it's fun to be with. And then we're also going to have talk about animations. One about accessibility, which I really care about. It's a subject I really care about in the last few months, and I personally try to get better at building accessible apps. About forums, about Angular Mobile Toolkit, and we'll probably have some. I think we're trying to get some talk about Angular Universal and something about TypeScript, but we still haven't got those confirmed, so they may happen, may not. Maybe we'll find the other topics. I'm probably going to do something on IoT. Like I have a few ideas, and I just need to choose up. Maybe something about the ng beacons, one of the projects I've been working on in the past few months. So yeah, we are trying to make it really diverse, interesting. One particular talk I'm really interested to find out what it's gonna be like is we have one of the local community member. Her name is Shmuela, and she's. Do you remember her from somewhere? Because you're smiling.
Yeah, I met her at ngConf, and she's going to be on the show. I don't know when. Pretty soon here, a few weeks. So yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, she's like really interesting. Like she's Angular developer, and she does a lot of community activities, and she also have a deaf dog. Like she's an interesting personality, and she drives like a car 30 years old, I think, like a buggy car. And like, yeah, she's interesting. And then she's going to give a talk. I think it's not final yet, so don't take my word for it, but she's probably going to give a talk that's called Talk to Your App. And I'm really interested to see what she will come up with.
Like voice recognition type stuff?
I guess that's the direction, but we'll have to wait and see.
Awesome.
Well, I'm in agreement with Aaron. That sounds really interesting. It kind of ties into the whole idea of accessibility as well, just from a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
By the way, Mike, when are we going to have you here in Israel?
I think it might be a little bit late for this year, but next year is always on the table.
I like that. I want to have you here, like to hang out with you and show you like some of the cool stuff we have here.
Well, see, that was the going to actually tie into my next question. So, with the conference, you've got a lot of stuff going on with sponsors and sessions and workshops and everything else going on with the conference. What about the ancillary things around the conference? Maybe different sightseeing activities or anything like that? Is there anything like that formally planned, or is that just go explore on your own? Is there time for that, or?
So yeah, that's actually one of the best selling point when I was asking friends to come and like Pascal and Joe to come and speak, like submit their proposals for the conference. I told them, hey, you know what? The best thing about it, like it's a conference, and there is so much you can do to differentiate a conference from other conferences. But then just before the conference, we are going to have a 2-day tour of Israel, the NG tour, I think that's the name of it. And it's going to be a really great experience. Like last year, it was just 1-day tour, and this time it's going to be a 2-day trip, and we are going to sleep inside the Bedouin tent and go to the Dead Sea and visit Jerusalem. And I know that the organizer of this whole NG tour, her name is Noor. She also does all the logistics from the conference, and she's actually a West Coast swing dancer. And she organized so many West Coast swing events in Israel and invited speakers from abroad. So she has a lot of experience with organizing those tours and making sure everybody has a good time. So that's like the formal plan. And then, unlike last year, when I just told to Justin that last year I was like getting off the plane from the States, giving my talk at Angular, going to the tour, and then going to NG Poland. This year, I hope to be in Israel a few days before and after the conference. So I personally plan to hang out with the people. I know Joe Eames told me he's going to come a few days early. So probably just take the car and explore, like do some hiking in the north of Israel or something like that. Like, I totally love this opportunity to have guests because it means there is a good reason to me to just travel and hike and do stuff with them if they like.
What's the weather like at this point right now in June?
Okay, so that's a big challenge because Israel gets really hot in the summer. Today was like, for example, 36 degrees Celsius, which Google says is like nearly 100 Fahrenheit. It's challenging. You definitely don't want to wear a suit or anything, just a t-shirt and flip-flops and shorts.
You're speaking my language right there.
So yeah, so June is probably a moment before it gets really hot. August and September are usually every day super hot, and also they are also usually very humid. Right now, like it's some of the days are really hot, but then at nights it gets really comfortable weather and even a little windy sometimes. So in my opinion, the best time to travel to Israel is April, May, and then end of September, October. So June is not optimal, but it's not too far from the optimal. And if you like hot weather, then yeah, definitely come in June. If you like being inside the ovens, then come in August.
Well,
Yeah.
as a possible attendee or possible speaker, I will say thank you for not hosting in July or August.
Yeah, I actually, I think in the past few years, every year I spent at least 1 or 2 weeks of July or August abroad just because I wanted to get away from the heat.
Cool. Well, let's why don't we talk a little bit about the Angular scene over there in Israel? Maybe you can fill us in on what that's like. We talked a little bit about that last year. We had discussion about AngularUP on one of the episodes, and we were talking a little bit about that. But yeah, let's talk about that. Are there a lot of people doing a lot of user groups, that sort of thing? Is it pretty popular over there?
So yes, I think like right now, it's not very different from other places in the world, but the two most popular front-end technologies are React and Angular, and there is a big React community. And we also have big React event called React Next. And then there is the Angular community, which is also really big and diverse. And there are like a few meetup groups. There is the AngularJS Israel. Now it's only called AngularIL because it's just Angular meetup group, which has more than 4,000 members. And I spoke on some of their events, and they have like really great people. So another like thing I'm doing when I'm public speaking, I always assume beforehand that the audience is not very smart. And the reason I do it is, first of all, there are a lot of people coming, especially if it's a meetup, a lot of people coming tired after a long day of work, and their brain power is not on 100%. Some of them are not really familiar with all the technologies I'm speaking about. But the best thing about it is that you really get surprised. Like I do it entry level. Sometimes I do dive deeper, but I try to keep everything very simple. And then somebody raises his hand and says, you know what, but in that case, if you did this and this, then you may get that. And I was, wow, that's really clever. I didn't even think of that. And that way I always get a positive experience with surprises. Like I don't expect the audience to be smart, but then they are. So that's one thing I can say about the community in Israel. We like, whenever we have something, Israelis in general, whenever they have something on their mind, they usually say it. So sometimes when you give a talk, people even, especially on the smaller conference, people even just tell you something or ask you something without even raising their hands when you pause for a second or when something is not clear. So one of the things you'll probably like or not like very much when you speak here in Israel, the talks are much more interactive. In many ways, sometimes it's even like you start to discuss with the audience, like even if you don't initiate it, like somebody asks you a question and then you answer, and then somebody else, just a moment, I want to add on top of that, and it becomes a discussion. That's something that I have seen in other places, but not as common as in Israel. Also, I think like we have some very interesting initiatives here. One of them, it was actually going to be one of the picks, but I'll speak about it now.
Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour, so it can be your pick. You can throw it out there right now. It's fine.
Okay, perfect. So it was it's ongoing initiative called Goodness Squad. And what they do there, it's sort of a hackathon organized by the JavaScript Israel group, which is one of the I think biggest tech communities in Israel. And what they do there, they basically gather like 30 to 40 people together, and they just get some mentors from open source projects on board, either in person or via Hangouts, and they just those people who come there just volunteer to work on issues and help those projects. I know they did one with Mozilla a few months ago, and they are having one tomorrow. I'm actually not sure what about. I have to check it out, but it's like amazing to see how differently they approach learning new stuff. Like you can learn by listening to a talk, but you can also learn a lot by just going on GitHub, like finding an issue where the author of the software wants you to contribute. Try to contribute, get some help from mentors around, and just get yourself into the code that somebody else is maintaining. And on the one hand, you contribute to open source, and then you also learn a lot from that.
That's really interesting. And so it's kind of like the opportunity to contribute remotely, but then now you can actually interact with people in person and get even more help doing that, which is probably
exactly
pulls more people in, right?
Yeah, and it also gives you some structure. Like, you have these 4 hours of the hackathon, and you have those projects on GitHub you can contribute to, and these are the issues that need help, and they help you like choose something that is matches your level. And then another cool thing that is going is an initiative of Nir Kaufman, who is also organizing AngularUP, which is called ngSweat. And they are like it's like some sort of paid meetup, so it's always pretty small, and people have to pay a small fee, like $5, just to make sure that everybody is actually really interested in doing it and not just attending. And then they just gather like at 7 p.m. or something like that, choose to tackle a subject like the Angular router, and then they do like guided live coding, and they start like at 7 p.m. and just go on until everybody drops dead. Sometimes they even finish at 2 a.m. It's like, what I like about the community here is that you see all those crazy initiatives, all those people trying to share the knowledge and train other people in ways that are not really the conventional ones. So that's what I love about it. And in general, we have a lot of meetups like going in Tel Aviv. There are a few meetups going every single day on all different subjects. There are like communities for technologies that are pretty new or pretty niche, like ELM or ClojureScript. And it really helps you if you just want to like know about new stuff. You just start going to random meetups and you meet cool people, you learn about stuff, and most of the content is free. And the bigger meetups like the Angular one and the JavaScript Israel meetup also upload all of the content to YouTube, and they have active Facebook groups where people help each other. And sometimes like the alternative, which is asking on Stack Overflow, is hard, because if you want to ask a question specific to right to left support, like Hebrew support, you may have a hard time reaching the right audience on Stack Overflow, or if you are just not comfortable writing in English, or you just want to ask like a quick question without giving the context, or just get some advice, like I want to learn Angular 2 or Angular for now. What are the best resources for somebody who lives in Israel? Perhaps there are like Israeli courses or Hebrew courses, training materials in Hebrew. So I think that's another good point. We have here like a lot of support, a lot of help.
Yeah, I think there's really like two things there, right? Like, obviously there's the benefit of new knowledge, and we can all kind of seek that out and find that by ourselves, right? But there's this motivation factor of when we get around other people and engage in these things that other people are excited about, and we come together as a unit to do that. It just motivates us even more and gets us more excited about staying more involved in it, right? So yeah, it's certainly something that's way beneficial for having that group to get together. So
I can also vouch for the value add of the Goodness Squad as well, because there's been a few instances where the Goodness Squad has gone through some issues and commented on them within the CLI. So very thankful for community contributions there.
Very cool. All right, well, we're at the top of the hour, so we better wrap this thing up. I guess, Uri, those are your picks, or do you have anything else you want to plug really quick?
Well, another pick of mine is Web Bluetooth, allowing web pages to interact with devices around them, like just a quick demo. So I have this smart bulb here, and I can actually connect to it from my smartphone, and yeah, and I can so choose real quick, red, green, or blue.
Blue.
Okay, so please go blue. Yeah, it worked. And it also works without power, but that's topic for another discussion, how it works. But the thing is, it's a web page inside Chrome that lets me control the bulb, and that's what I love about Web Bluetooth. We finally can interact with stuff around us outside the browser just using web technologies. And get my face blue.
That's cool. That's very cool.
That's crazy.
Thanks.
Hey, Mike, you got anything, Mike?
I'm going to go against myself and make myself look bad. I'm going to say punctuality, showing up on time.
Hey, you can come in
Always
and
paint yourself in the best picture by showing up on time.
Life happens. It's all right. No worries.
No, I didn't have any picks planned for today.
Cool. Well, I've got one. I want to pick Lighthouse, the Google Dev tool for checking your performance and your metrics and everything kind of on your site, right, on your application. Check it out. You can just search for Google Dev Tool Lighthouse, and it's kind of like a Weissman score, right? You want to pump that thing up and get that and hit that point. So run that Lighthouse. Check your apps and your web apps. All right. Well, thanks, Mike, for hopping on. And thanks, Uri, for coming on and talking all about AngularUP. Again, that's coming up in June, on June 25th. Do you know, are there still selling tickets for that?
Yeah, actually, we are like in the middle of the ticket sales. So I think for the next week, you can still get the standard ticket price, which is, I think around 150 euros. And then if you wait, if you get it after, it's going to be around 200 euros. So if you are interested, definitely just get your ticket now. No need to wait.
There's still a discount for if you use the AngularAir, all one word, coupon?
I'll have to ask Noor about that because she's doing all the logistics, but I think we can arrange something.
Okay, so I think we had that. So I don't know, give it a try. If you're buying a ticket, throw in the code AngularAir, all one word. Let's see if you can get that.
Okay, perfect. If not, I will just ping Noor now. She just pinged me. She actually thought the podcast was at 11 Israel time, and that's why she didn't show up.
Yep.
Yeah, time zones.
Yep. All right, cool. Well, thanks a lot. And everybody have a good week. And we'll be back next week, next Tuesday. Thanks.
Yeah, see you.